Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome to what is clearly a very special unboxing, Omega Moonwatch. Now I should be clear from the very beginning, this is not my Omega Moonwatch. I've only just made it back off the couch and into the bedroom after the purchase of my Oris 65 last month. It will be a long time before I build up sufficient credit for one of these bad boys in every sense of the term. This watch belongs to, let's just call him Mr. X at this stage. A mysterious benefactor who would rather remain nameless. I don't know whether he's running from his ex-wife or the taxman, or perhaps his ex-wife is a taxman. Regardless, massive thank you to Mr. X for generously donating his brand new Moonwatch for me to unbox, including peeling the stickers off of it for our mutual benefit today. I'm excited, my hands are shaking, let's get on with it. So, my first challenge today is actually going to be filming this unboxing. This box is enormous, and I actually mean enormous. I've done a few unboxings, I've looked at a few giant boxes over the last year or so, but this one takes the biscuit. I'm gonna have to actually lift my camera up to give you an idea of the sheer scale of that box. Mr. X tells me that the price of these Speedmasters was adjusted a couple of years ago by $300 when they moved to this new packaging, and you can see why Omega seem to be the king of these enormous boxes, determined to outbox the competition literally and figuratively. And what exactly is in this giant box then? Well, this is a Speedmaster Moonwatch Professional Chronograph 42mm. The model number of this one is 311304230010005, or Moonie to its mates. Look at this, it gets even better. Enormous, hang on a second. So we've got a brand standard operating instruction manual and the international warranty card and pictograms in this very pleasant little Omega pouchy thing. And I do like this double-sided pictorial instruction manual. For the metal bracelet, for the leather strap, kind of an idiot's how-to guide changing the strap out for the bracelet. I wish more brands would include one of these with their watches, very useful indeed. And now we're getting into the good stuff. There are surely few watches on today's market that have the genuine provenance of an Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch, and if you weren't aware of it, there's a nice little booklet here to tell you all about it. First Speedmaster there, detailing Omega's involvement with NASA since the early 1960s. Apparently NASA tested Rolexes, they tested Breitlings, but they settled upon the Omega Speedmaster, and it accompanied its astronauts in their early missions to the moon. There is an early Speedmaster, looks remarkably similar to the model that I'm about to show you, which is the whole point. Now, Neil Armstrong didn't have his Speedmaster on when he first stepped on the moon, but Buzz Aldrin certainly did. There's Aldrin wearing his Speedmaster there for you to see. So the Speedmaster really was the first watch worn on the moon. It was also a critical component in the safe and successful return to Earth of the Apollo 13 mission, the one that could have gone disastrously wrong. Apparently the Speedmaster was used to time a 13.8 second engine burn necessary to angle the craft correctly for re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Yay Speedmaster! And the Speedmaster was also the last watch on the moon, so the first watch and the last watch back in 1972. And we haven't even managed to open the box properly yet. Huge kind of flight case style thing here, looks amazing as it should for the price. So then, before we get more closely into the watch, what is the price of one of these? Well, the list price is nearly $5,000 US. It's just over $6 grand here in Australia. I think grey market, you can pick up one of these Moonwatches on JOMASHOP currently for exactly $3.5 grand. I'll leave a link to that JOMASHOP purchase in the description of this video below. So we appear to have some secret trap doors here. What have we got? God, we've got an eyeglass to examine your watch more closely, and in this one we've got various straps and things. Now Mr. X bought this from a dealer in the UK who did kindly size it up for his 7.5-inch wrist. Mr. X rather conveniently has wrist size closer to me, so I'll be popping this one on later. Here we have a NATO strap. I believe this was the style of strap worn by the astronauts on the moon. There's a second Omega branded, more conventional contemporary NATO in here as well, some spare spring bars, and a very tasty Omega branded spring bar removal tool. Not sure that the giant decorative case back does anything other than visual interest, but there it is nonetheless. But enough of the packaging, let's get into the watch. And there it is, and doesn't it look gorgeous? As mentioned, it's pretty much, visually anyway, the same watch that went to the moon in 1969. That's the whole point of the purchase. Let's get some of these stickers off. The bracelet, however, is a much more modern Omega Speedmaster bracelet, but the body of the watch, the head of the watch, if you will, is very much like it was back in the 60s. Gorgeous domed hesalite crystal on top of this one. Scratch prone, mind you, so you're going to have to take care of this one in a way that you perhaps wouldn't if it had a modern sapphire crystal on it. And of course, this watch is manual winding. It is not an automatic, just like those old Speedies were. So this is a modern Omega bracelet with 5-piece links and solid end links. Nice kind of satinized brushing, a little bit of polish on the two smaller mid links as well there, and a beautiful high quality clasp. That clasp just looks gorgeous, doesn't it? Quick look at that lovely Speedmaster professional clasp there as well. I do like a nice clasp, and that is a nice clasp. Very solid engagement, and the double safety pushers on either side. Now, it has been observed elsewhere that those outer links and the mid link are, to an extent at least, reversible. They are symmetrical. Obviously, there's a polish on the two tiny little mid links, but the outers and the middle solid links, obviously, using Omega's twin screw and sheath system to hold them all together, are reversible. They're the same on the top as they are on the bottom if you ever need to swap them over. So 42mm in diameter then, 20mm lug width. This one 14.7mm thick, a lot of that due to that lovely piece of domed hesalite crystal. 47.5mm lug tip to lug tip, which doesn't sound a lot. However, it does have those protruding mid links on this stainless steel bracelet, at least taking the effective lug to lug to about 53mm, so do be aware of that if you are a guy with a slightly smaller wrist and you're considering buying this bigger 42mm professional Moonwatch, as opposed to some of the smaller Speedmaster automatics which are available. As it currently sits, weighing in at a decent 153 grams on the all stainless steel bracelet. Obviously we're talking 316L stainless steel on the case here as well today. Aluminium bezel insert. Popping the case back very carefully indeed, there is another little sticker here for us to peel. Now, screw down case back today as you'd expect, but only 50 meters. Water resistant, so not the most practical watch in the world given the hesalite crystal and the fact that it's only got 50 meters. But look at that, the lovely Speedmaster coin style pressed into the middle there, flight qualified by NASA for all manned space missions. The first watch on the moon, as if you had forgotten professional Moonwatch. Just a lovely case back. Now, the movement in the Moonie is what Omega calls a 1861. It's a relatively antiquated movement, still cam operated chronograph, not a million miles away from the movements that powered the Omegas of the 1960s, but again, that's the point. Let's see if we can get this one moving by giving it a few winds there. There we are, with the second hand subdial effectively at the 9 o'clock there, springs into action. So we've got a 12-hour here using the two subdials there at the 3 and the 6. One pusher, the top pusher, nice snappy engagement there, starts the action. 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and then we're on to the hours all the way up to 12 hours there. Stopping it again with a push of the top pusher and resetting it with one push of the bottom pusher, being careful not to press either of those pushers underwater. As mentioned, this one isn't particularly waterproof. When fully wound, this movement should operate for around 48 hours. I've got a friend with one of these. He says he gets about 50 to 52 hours with his. I'll pop up a lume shot. There's actually surprisingly decent amount of lume. They used to be tritium tubes in the early days. They've moved towards a much more modern Swiss Superluminova on the hands and on the baton indices there, but certainly making it a little more usable as a day-to-day piece, the fact that it's got some decent lume on it. So that's about as close as I'm going to get to that lovely dial there. Very, very simple. I'll just start the timer there so that it moves away from the logo. Very, very simple, just black and white. We've obviously got the hour batons, minute tracks, and then every fifth of a second there on the very outer track, but very nice and clean. A little bit of a recess for each of the 3 subdials, but not a lot going on there other than the chronograph, which is how it should be. Swiss made down there at the 6 o'clock there, very much old style as well, looks fantastic, and that hesalite again just looks amazing. And to adjust the time, it's just one pull out of the crown and you're adjusting the minute and the hour hand there. No date on this model either, as is the style of the originals. And I should point out the tachymeter on the outside there so you can work out just how fast your spaceship is traveling at any given moment. So there it is on my 7-inch wrist, thankfully not a million miles away from Mr. X's wrist, which is just as well. Looks fantastic. As noted, those long central lugs do make it sit a little bit flat. Obviously that only applies with the steel bracelet. There are another 5 different options of the Moonie. You don't have to buy the bracelet if you don't want to. Perhaps a leather strap would be better if you've got slightly smaller wrists, slightly smaller than my 7-inch wrists anyway, to allow the watch to conform a little bit more closely. As noted, there's that Velcro moon style strap and the NATO included in the package, but just looks stunning. Such a beautiful, simple watch to look at. In spite of the complexity of the dial, somehow it manages to look simple. Quite a trick here for the Speedmaster. And the hesalite crystal, as you can see there, just distorting the dial a little bit around the edges. Lovely piece of vintage distortion there. Now this one, obviously being hesalite, a form of acrylic, you can polywatch it, you can polish out the nicks and the scuffs. Certainly you can't do with a mineral crystal, but as mentioned, it is far more prone to getting those scuffs than would be a piece of sapphire as fitted to the automatic Speedmasters. So unboxing the legend then, what do I think of the Moonwatch? Well, it's an aesthetic choice, this one, and you're buying the story rather than a modern day contemporary luxury timepiece. There are other chronographs out there. There are plenty of other watches out there that offer a more modern interpretation of this style and have more of a feel of luxury to them than this watch does. But there are no other watches out there that offer you the connection to history and that space mission provenance that the Moonwatch does, and for that $3.5 grand doesn't seem like a huge price to pay, does it? So there you have it. Massive thank you to Mr. X for letting me peel the stickers off his Moonwatch, and my god is it a stunning timepiece. There aren't too many watches in the world with provenance like this one does, and thankfully it is one timepiece that more than lives up to the hype. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video. By the way, Mr. X has got a sea dweller. He's going to give me a crack at that next.